about that, ladies and gentlemen. So, as I mentioned, one of the stories we were going to be talking about, as you guys will see tomorrow, is a disgusting thing that happened, in my opinion anyway, where a account known, related to, I believe it's a halal butchers called Malik Butchers, posted a video making fun, and this, although they tried to deny it, they were making fun of British girls who have been groomed by, in their case, the Pakistani brothers. And a few people reposted it. I did as well, and I talked about it on the podcast. And after that, it appears that they took the video down, and they've now made excuses saying that it was because of bullying and racism that they received and stuff like that in the comments of the video. And what they done, these people, how truly shameless they are, rather than just, saying, as if it can be saved at this point, as if any notion of it can be saved at this point. These people are here on borrowed time. These people are here on borrowed time from the government. We could have this problem solved very quickly if the government wanted it solved. America's proving that very well. These people are here on borrowed time. But he repeated the lie, as we know, that most of the grooming in these instances are done by white men, even trying to do a nice little sneaky, subject change, a little bait and switch, if you will. I don't know if bait and switch is the exact term, but he uses the term convicted. He uses the term convicted in a sense of there are more white men that are convicted for these kinds of crimes than Pakistani men, Pakistani Muslim men. When obviously convicted implies obviously they were then sentenced in a court of law. They were presumably went to trial or entered in a guilty plea, whatever it is. Well, as we know, he's chosen that term deliberately because we know how much the trials were covered up. We know how much these instances were covered up. We know how much they were going on, but the people who were doing them weren't convicted, specifically because of their skin color and their religion, and because of the skin color of the victims. Because it was predominantly brown Muslims of Pakistani origin raping as part of their ethno-religious conquest white young British girls, they were allowed to basically get off scot-free in a lot of instances because you can't upset the apple cart. This would upset the apple cart if you found out that you had systematic gangs, systematic trafficking operations going on. But no, of course, it's always got to be the white man, the white man, the white man. Funnily enough, ladies and gentlemen, and this is not me in any way defending any kind of child rapist, that in a society that is still at the moment majority white British at the moment, you would expect the majority of people convicted of any crime to be white British, simply because they make up more of the population. That's why you notice that it's such a problem when you're looking at cultural problems in these communities. A great example is the black community in America, for example. We had this gang, hoe culture that's going on over there. It's absolutely ruining their communities. Gang, hoe culture, breaking up of the family, welfare system culture going on over there. That means that black, I believe it's black men or black people in particular, despite making up only, I believe it's about 13% of the population, I think it's about 13% of the population. I might be wrong. It might be slightly lower. It might be slightly higher, but it's a minority of the population. They make up about 50% of the murders. They make up about 50% of the gun crime, I think it is. That tells you a lot. That tells you a lot when a very small section of a population is responsible for so much greater of a specific crime or all crime, whatever it may be, relative to how much of the population they make up. That is very, very, very concerning. And that shows that there are far bigger problems in this community. Namely, that this was done because of the ethnicity of the girls and because of the religion, not only potentially of the girls, because we know other religious minorities were also targeted in some instances, Sikhs and Hindus and stuff. But the vast majority of them, because they were white British children of the infidels, do whatever the fuck you want. Do whatever heinous, disgusting stuff you wanted. Because Allah sanctioned it. But no, this is the video now of the guy in the video who calls the kid Halal Kid coming out and defending. Again, no surprise, these people are defending the indefensible.
So Tommy Robinson shared our video the other day. Predictably, it got reported by so many of his followers that it was taken down. Now, it's kind of ironic considering they go around calling everyone else snowflakes. But what's clear is many people have missed the point of the video. So let's talk about it. The video was never about mocking a horrific crime or its victims. It was a satirical response to the thousands of comments that we get calling us groomers just because we're Muslim or Pakistani. These screenshots took me 1 minute to find from a single video. We're actually mocking the absurdity of the accusation. Like the video shows, we're more likely to give your...
Absurdity. Before he goes on to the next part. Absurdity, ladies and gentlemen, that when you look at child sexual abuse and exploitation cases in Rotherham, in Operation Stovewood, that about 3% of the population was responsible for nearly 2/3 of the child sexual abuse and exploitation cases that were analysed in that study. Forgive people for doing a bit of generalisation and pattern noticing. You know, what's the term for it? I've forgotten the actual term for it. Apophenia. Forgive people for exercising a bit of apophenia. You know, I don't even call it that, but noticing that these people that have a certain number of factors in common, despite making up 2.4 to 4% of the population in these areas, were responsible for about 2/3, nearly 2/3 of some of the most heinous child sexual abuse and exploitation crimes that we've seen. And as we know, ladies and gentlemen, these crimes, as we talked about before, go back a lot further than just, say, 20 years. They go back a lot further than that. These things go back to the 50s. If you haven't listened to my episode on that, of how far back these atrocities really go, that's how far back they go. At a minimum. At a minimum. Back when these people were in their tens of thousands in this country. It's only gone worse since then. Funnily enough, the more that we've got, the more the problem has intensified. Funny how that works. Don't say don't be saying, correlation doesn't equal causation and stuff like that. I know that perfectly well. But funnily enough, when you see more and more of these people who you already had problems with coming into your country, and then the problems that they were associated with are getting worse and worse and worse, forgiving me for noticing a bit of correlation and causation there, and maybe bringing in more of these people are causing more of the problems. Forgive me for noticing that. But again, these people have no shame. These people have no shame because they saw what was happening as a good thing. So again, when you have 3% of the population responsible for 64% of the crime, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you don't generalize. Make sure you don't generalize. Make sure you don't stereotype. Make sure you don't profile. Otherwise, these people aren't going to be able to groom your kids.
Child a respectful haircut than anything remotely close to the vile things we're accused of. Statistically, Muslims or Asians are actually less likely to be convicted of such a crime than white Britons.
And there's the bait and switch.
The Casey report.
Did you catch it? Did you catch it, ladies and gentlemen?
Accused of. Statistically,
I'll play it one more time for you.
Muslims or Asians are actually less likely to be convicted of such a crime than white Britons. Now, some will...
Less likely to be convicted of such a crime. Yeah, exactly, when you notice how politicized and two-tier the system has become. Where you have Lucy Connolly, for example, being ragged about in prison for a tweet that she made that she apologized for and took down, which was in no way an incitement to violence or hatred. She was convicted, fast-tracked through the courts like that. Anytime that it's a white British person, they are fast-tracked through the courts like that. Not only their name, their likeness, their street often is thrown out there. So, if anybody wants to go and attack their family and keep their family silent for us so they won't speak out via threats and stuff like that, that's why they do it, ladies and gentlemen. Make no mistake. If somebody is convicted of some kind of racially aggravated crime, whatever, and they put their address out there, these people will then go and threaten the family. And obviously then that stops the family from speaking out and causing trouble, so that the system then just goes on so the system goes on with no change whatsoever. But again, they're less likely to be convicted. Yes, the whole problem was that the Pakistanis were less likely to be convicted of the same crime because of their religion, because of their ethnicity, because of their race, because of the victims. Yes, they were less likely to be convicted. That is an admittance of the problem. That is an admittance of the problem. That these people were allowed to do the crimes and not get convicted for it. Whereas people were going to prison if they had a skin colour like mine and a voice like mine for a hell of a lot less. That is an admittance of the problem. So these people are completely fucking shameless. These people are completely fucking shameless. That's why they're here, make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, on borrowed time. And to substantiate this, ladies and gentlemen, here's an example of something that was published in GB News. 6 members of one of the Britain's worst grooming gangs released from prison early. This is from Charlie Peters and was published yesterday. It was published yesterday. 6 key members of one of Britain's worst grooming gangs have been released early, and 2 are no longer even on licence. The gang terrorised young girls in Oxford between 1998 and 2005 by sexually abusing them, including rape, after plying them with drugs and alcohol. They subjected the vulnerable girls to threats and violence and made them have sex with other men and had the victims at their quote-unquote mercy. One groomer lived 174 miles away from Oxford in Bolton, Lancashire. I'm presuming Lancs is short for Lancashire. 6 of the members have been released early, and I'm gonna show their faces, ladies and gentlemen. I want these people being nice and famous. So these are the disgusting individuals that have been released early by the lovely Labour government in this country, despite being involved in one of the worst cases of child grooming, rape, exploitation, trafficking in this country. So you have, ladies and gentlemen, as some examples for you. Top left of centre. In fact, I'll just bring this up on screen again a moment. Give me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, because you can actually, I'll go through their names then. So you can see here, top left centre, Aladita Yusuf, Khalid Hussein, bottom left to centre, Kamir Iqbal, I'm not sure if they're 2 separate names actually. Kamir Iqbal, Haji Khan, top right, Rahim Ahmed, bottom right, and then Kamran Khan, or Kamran, however you say it. These are the people that have just been let out early for their disgusting crimes against children in Oxford from 1998 to 2005. 2 have even been taken off licence, meaning a series of conditions that they would have had to adhere to no longer even apply. This is what we mean, ladies and gentlemen, when the people that raped the young girls are now free to just walk about the communities with their victims still in those communities as if nothing happened. You know? These people should be in the ground. These people should be dangling from a fucking rope. That's where they should be. The victims were aged between 13 and 15. The Ministry of Justice confirmed the following men had all been released from prison. There you go. Kamir Iqbal, 39, Oxford, guilty of 3 counts of rape and sentenced to 12 years. And these are their ages at the time of the sentence in June 2018, by the way. Khalid Hussein, 38, of Oxford, guilty of rape and indecent assault, sentenced to 12 years. 12 years, that's the most you get for this now. 12 years. And then they get released early and off licence. Cameron Khan, 36, of Bolton, guilty of indecent assault and false imprisonment, sentenced to 8 years. Rahim Ahmed, 40, of Oxford, guilty of 2 counts of indecent assault and false imprisonment, sentenced to 12 years. Aladida Yusuf, 48, guilty of indecent assault, sentenced to 7 years and 6 months. And Haji Khan of Oxford, 38, guilty of conspiracy to rape, sentenced to 10 years. The rapes and the assaults happened often in cars, especially in Nissan Serena people carrier in lay-bys, parks and guest houses. One of the victims said of the people carrier, they would pick up the girls, have sex with them and dump them. Everything happened in that Serena. And yeah, as you know, a Ministry of Justice spokesperson says, our thoughts remain with all the victims in this despicable case. Offenders released on licence are subject to strict conditions and will be sent back if they break the rules. Yeah, I'm sure.